So the question is what else can be done? And there was one thing I had always known about cancer, and that is if one thing cures cancer, it's immunotherapy.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today on our show. We're joined by Larry and his wife, Kwa, who have graciously agreed to join us and share a bit of their story and their experience with our known Dr. Williams, who is also with us today. A bit of pre-context. A few years ago, Larry was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and given a prognosis that would change the course of his and his family's life. At the time, I believe it was just a number of months that was otherwise given. There was no cure available to him, and it was a matter of not if, but when. And it was a devastating occurrence for him and his family when he embarked on a search for life and a search for a future. And today, we are happy to share with everybody that Larry is cancer-free. This conversation is meant to walk everyone through the journey in a thoughtful and transparent manner. There's not really a script per se on how we're going to go about this, other than taking this opportunity to really hear the story of Larry and what he went through, as well as some of the remarkable accomplishments that were achieved between him and Dr. Williams, and talk a little bit about how that experience came to be and where he's at today as a result, and how it might have changed his life for the better. So real quick, I would like to just fire over to Larry. Larry, thank you for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here to join you.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, I'd love to just dive in a little bit deeper on this and just take us back before this happened. Where were you at in life? What were you doing? We would love to just know, like, before even knowing or having any awareness of the cancer, what were you doing in life?
Yeah, so I was busy with a bunch of things. So just career-wise, I was working in data analytics. I actually had a kind of a specialty in low probability rare events and with big outcomes. So in some ways, I was a little bit prepared for a decision-making process like this.
Are you saying you manifested this?
Yep, but never imagined I'd have to be doing anything like this, for myself. But that's what it was. And I did a lot of work at that time with my youngest son with his Cub Scout program, and was very busy with that as sort of my like outside of work activities, and and that was just, I think, like an important part of all of this. And in fact, when I got my diagnosis, one of the first things that I did was tell the parents of all the kids in the Cub Scout group. And that was actually a pretty impactful and changing thing to do too. So I know a lot of people say, or don't like to share diagnosis and information. I said, I'm going to do the opposite, and shared it. And that actually changed a lot of things for me, including getting me to not have to wait a month for an oncologist appointment. I had a phone call from an oncologist the next day as a result of that, because one of the parents got on the phone and started networking.
Having a friend that went through pancreatic cancer, I recall his journey and his experience. And the one thing that he shared with me was he had no idea how much people really loved him and how much they would do for him in this time of need. So I can imagine that was a revelatory experience for you, especially, just sharing that with your comrades in that respect.
And through the entire process, I think, one of the things that I've done is try to be open with everybody that I know about it. Again, I know a lot of people like to hold it in, but I think, when you open up and share your experience and what's happening, you never know where help will come from. And I think that's an important thing. And it's usually not the people who are closest to you. It's going to be like friends of friends or something that, somebody knows somebody, and, that'll make a difference.
I think a lot of us can relate to having the father figure that would never ask for help, that would never look for anybody to assist them. And there's no more of a time of need than when you have a prognosis or something as the diagnosis that you received in that respect. Kwa, thank you for joining us. I would love to hear the same question from you. What did your life look like before this diagnosis? What were you doing, and what was your focus?
My job is about finance. My goal at that time, I have a 5-year-old son, and my goal is just very simple: work hard to achieve, our both goal together with Larry, and raise up our kids, make sure he become a valuable person, That's very simple. And I never know cancer is so close to me. But I just like majority of people. I know cancer is horrible, but I feel it's so far away from us. Larry is very healthy. I am healthy. Like, how come all of a sudden, for the first day I still remember, he came back in the garage. He told me he got cancer. My brain was froze at that time. I was sitting in front of the house, just on the stairs, anywhere. I was like, what should I do? I gotta save his life. That's all beginning. Like, why us?
Absolutely. And as a father and as a husband, I can't imagine the thoughts that went through your mind, not to mention what you might have been thinking about even prior to that. Do you remember prior to that moment what some of the bigger things that were on your mind, what maybe worries either of you were having at the time? Even before the cancer diagnosis, do you remember things that were like, oh, this is such a big deal or anything of that?
I think one of the things I was trying to do actually was just get healthier and lose weight. And one of the things that was I think a problem in getting an earlier diagnosis was I thought it was working.
Oh no. Oh, I don't mean to laugh at that, but that is one of those
Yeah.
things where it's like I'm losing a tremendous amount of weight or something of that, and
And I think
the
people were.
the timing.
I think that's a common path that a lot of people have. Is they're trying to lose weight, and then suddenly something they did is starting to work. And unfortunately, it's not that. It was cancer that was starting to work.
One of the few circumstances that I believe anybody would ever celebrate cancer. It would be unknowingly and as a result of weight loss, I suppose.
And I think that's the one thing that realize. People don't realize weight loss can be a symptom, and you don't always think, oh, I should go see the doctor if I'm losing weight.
Right. Absolutely. Well, when did you first know something was wrong?
Um, it's a gradual process. But it wasn't until it got kind of bad. I started having back pain, and I thought I injured myself. I had some back pain before, and I thought just some of the exercises I was doing maybe hurt my back. So I again didn't think anything of it because I just knew how to treat that. And then the things I was doing wasn't enough, so I went and visited a chiropractor, and then that didn't work. And then one day the pain got so bad, it was just kind of wrapping all around my torso. I decided to go to the urgent care facility right nearby, and I was expecting to get a couple muscle relaxants is what it was. And they were examining it and said, well, that where you're getting pain might be a referred pain, so it might be a gallbladder issue is what they thought, especially given my age. So they said, well, let's go get you a scan. So we went and we did an ultrasound scan, and I had to wait actually a day for that because they didn't have an ultrasound right where they were. But I could tell from even when they were doing the ultrasound, they were starting to like image other parts that weren't exactly where they were directed to initially. And then on my way home, I got a phone call from my primary care doctor who broke the news.
What did you feel in that moment?
That was just kind of like numbness. Just not sure what to do. I was actually in the grocery store when I picked up the call. I wasn't even expecting it because I was expecting not to hear for like 24 hours or more. But it was only like 20 minutes.
Wow. So they probably knew while they were providing the scans. They naturally aren't allowed to say anything in that. And so as soon as the doctor saw it, he provided the call. And did he give anything of a prognosis at that stage, or was the next step to come in the next day? Or
nope, the next step was they were going to try to find a GI doctor and an oncologist for me, and they were going to rush it. And even that took a while. So I had a GI appointment in over a week, and the oncologist was probably like 3 weeks away, which is why it was fortunate that I told people, because I ended up getting an oncologist appointment, in like 2 days.
do you feel that that is largely attributable to where you are today, the fact that you received that oncology appointment earlier than what it would have been if you waited?
It's hard to say. It certainly helped. But my chemotherapy treatment was delayed a little bit because I had low neutrophils. That might have helped with some of it. But it still took a month. I don't know how fast everything would have happened. But I did get a biopsy and a port placed very quickly. That was just a matter of days also. In fact, it was my birthday, I think, that I got my port put in. So I celebrated my birthday.
It's usually you almost don't want to think about it being an alarming sign if a doctor's moving fast. No offense, Dr. Williams, you're an exception to the rule in that. But it sounds like that in itself you were just through a whirlwind of experience. Paul, I'd like to go over to you. As a father myself, I think probably it's hard for me not to speak about this without getting choked up. But did you, at that time, were you having conversations with your son about this, and what kind of conversations, if any, were you having with him about this matter?
So just small ones, I think, and I think, I left a lot of that up to Hua. I think I knew enough to know that, you can't hide things from kids. I think that's another mistake people make. Kids are pretty smart and they pick up on things, and they can certainly observe, when things are wrong and sense it. So I wanted to be open, but also just give him the information that he was comfortable with taking. Right, so you don't have to push too much on. You just, I guess, kind of explore and see what kind of what he's interested in. When he's done, and just let it go with that.
And Kwa, how did you handle that with that experience? It seems like in that situation, you would have to put on the happy face for him and, continue chucking away. And I'm sure the curious questions would come on occasion, but how were you handling this?
I guarantee you it's tough. I think at first, we share with the school, and the school teacher knows about our situation. And then the school is so helpful, very supportive. Right away, they actually sent to a teacher, kind of like to reach out to Max for that.
Yeah, the school counselor.
Yeah, the school counselor. And then, in the house, I have to be like normal, just tell Max that, that got some issue, have to see doctor. So, that just need Max to be aware of this. But we cannot share just like say, hey, it's a deadly disease. We cannot let kids to get frustrated. Another side, I have to be, strong. And then I cannot cry every day because I cannot let Larry get depressed, and I cannot let kids be aware of, get cranky. I can share one story, maybe can help for some family. I think
Please.
because Larry mentioned he cannot get chemo treatment at that time, and until June,
And what month was he diagnosed?
May, right around Memorial Day.
For a month.
And then and the school was closed at that time in June. And the Max I have to put Max in a summer camp because I need to work. I need to support this family. And then that summer camp, I remember at that time, that day, Larry Larry went to the hospital for the first day of chemo, and that's the first day Max went to a summer camp in a farm. And then he used to love farm, love animal, everything. But somehow that day, he said he doesn't want to go. He just don't want to go to summer camp. He doesn't want to go to farm. So I convinced him. I said, let's get into the car. And let's go to there, take a look and say, how it looks like first, right? You cannot just say no at the very beginning, even you haven't seen that yet. So he's okay. He get into the car and went to the summer camp. And I was like around 8 o'clock. And all the kids and went with the teacher and go to their group. Everything until 10 o'clock. He's still in the car. Doesn't want to come out. Didn't want to come out. And I talked to the teacher, say, teacher, if you can help explain to him. And one of, I think, a mother and then her daughter saw us. And her daughter is very nice and came over and to the car and tell Max, you said, Max, and I didn't really like this camp on the first day, but after I've been through all the activities here, I love here. But which Max won't listen. And I told Max, let's go outside, get out of the car to see what kids they're doing. And then we decided if we should go home or should stay. Then he went outside and we went to the field to see what kids they're exactly doing. And at that time, I just told myself, Hua, you have to figure out. And then Max stay with the summer camp. I don't know how. I got to figure out because I don't want anything delay Larry's chemo because Larry still keeps sending me message, how's Max doing? And then I told Max, you go to play with them first and say, Mom is stay here with you. Okay, you try out. And if not, we go home. But if not, we have to stay here because you gotta let to try with the other kids. Guess what? He went there to try to play with the kids, and then he just forgot me still there. And then when I left the field, and I told no teacher, if something wrong, please call me. I never get a call from school. And then that's how I deal with the first day.
That was the first day. My goodness. Children are delicate to energy and how they can feel as things, even without words. They know and they can see when their parents are in distress. So I imagine that while he might not have fully understood what it was that was pulling him back, it sounds like he wanted to be there to support you. And it sounds like that you had to put on the strong face for that. And I can only imagine that was very difficult for you. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to go a little bit further into the chemo experience. Larry, when you went in and you had your first chemo experience, what was told to you in terms of your expectations? And, at what time did you get the prognosis and what happened at that stage?
I had the prognosis earlier, like before the chemo, right, when I was meeting my oncologist. And so I was kind of direct. I think, I established the relationship with the oncologist, because I was asking a lot of questions, being very direct about everything, and just making sure that, I was getting absolutely every question answered that I possibly could, and just being clear, I'm not just sitting here passively doing this. I want to know everything so I can figure out what else I'm going to be doing. And so that's when I had the prognosis, and he says, you typically, it's, 11 months with the chemo, and that's kind of the standard thing with FOLFIRINOX. So I think one of the first things was just to believe him, that was, the limit of what he was going to be able to do.
So that was stage 4 terminal at that stage. There wasn't a matter of cure.
No. That's just what standard of care is, and and I didn't understand all of this, and especially about what standard of care even is. But I did know enough. Okay, when the doctor tells you this, believe him, and then you can go out and look and see what else can possibly be done, because nobody's going to know everything. And so the question is what else can be done? And there was one thing I had always known about cancer, and that is if one thing cures cancer, it's immunotherapy. And I researched all kinds of other things too, and when you're doing the research, all kinds of different treatments come up. Just dozens of them. I won't get into all of them, but you see all kinds of things, and I start looking at them and saying, okay, well, this one looks interesting and promising, but it's clearly not there yet. So kind of table that, because maybe that's something to experiment with.
And you don't have time to experience at that stage.
Yeah. And then, well, here's another one, okay, well, this looks okay, but, maybe there's something that's even better than that. And that's when I stumbled across intratumoral immunotherapy and what Dr. Williams is doing. And I said, okay, that looks really good, because that's immunotherapy, and, injecting it right into the tumor, that makes a lot of sense. So that looks good. And it's like, okay, well, what kinds of options, like who else is doing all of this? And to see what all of the options are. And just kept looking and seeing what different people were doing. and it became clear that the Williams Cancer Institute was doing far more than anybody else.
Leave it to a data guy to find that out, right? And all the meanwhile, you're going through chemo, which is an endless road without a destination, so to speak, and going through the experiences that chemo has on your body. I only imagine that that was taking a toll on you, while meanwhile still motivated to try to find another option. What was your primary motivator in this, aside from sustaining life and getting cured in that respect? Like, what was in your mind as to, I need to do this for?
Yeah, well, it's really about, family and supporting the family, and watching my two kids grow up, and especially our youngest here, Max, with helping him develop and get into adulthood.
Oh, there he is.
Yep, there he is. So I think that's one of the most important things. And the pictures you're showing here, this was in the summer, he's been learning cello and how to play cello. And we went to Ithaca, New York, and that's Ithaca Falls there. And that's an experience he just wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's really beautiful. It's again trying to maintain some composure here as we're speaking about it. And I'd like to go a little bit forward and just kind of jump into this next stage and talk about the Williams cancer experience. So what point did you end up having your first meeting with Dr. Williams? And tell us a little bit about that.
If I remember right, it must have been like July of 2022 when we first had our first phone call or web communication about what the plan was. At that time, I was still a little bit too sick to travel because the chemo was very tough on me. I was basically sick the entire 2 weeks in between treatments. The thought of traveling in that condition was almost impossible. But
and
I
I
had
imagine
some
it's hard to distinguish what was from the cancer and what was from the chemo at that point as to what was more debilitating, right?
And but eventually it got better, and I think that's and I think I was talking with Dr. Williams, and he says you feel like you're good enough, we're ready to take you, and as soon as I started not being sick for an entire 2 weeks, we got in touch and said, okay, now it's time, and and then things worked very rapidly from there as well. And so that was the other thing that was really good. So in fact, I think he was able to take me sooner than I was actually able to logistically arrange travel. Because I'm flying across the country, so being in Connecticut, it just wasn't quite as easy as getting there. There weren't as many flights to get to Cabo as there were maybe from other parts of the country.
Sure. And Kwa, I want to ask you as well, what was going through your mind at this point? I imagine that you are somewhere between hope, fear, and not wanting to get overly excited about opportunity. But what were you thinking at this time when you knew that there was another opportunity?
Oh, that's a good question. I was my feeling at that time is, if I could send email to anyone in the whole world, I will. Everybody. I actually did send out email to even they're doing research, I send an email to ask. But Larry keeps saying, if someone can save his life, that gotta be Dr. William Institute. I really don't know why he says that, but I still remember the first time when I was in a video meeting with Dr. Williams. I asked Dr. Williams and said, "Can you please, help us? Kids so young." And Dr. Williams said, "I will do my best." Then we started all the procedure. I still remember that day when I was in bank the first time I wire money. We couldn't find anyone can verify all of this, and I stay in a I was sign and all the papers, and I told myself, Hua, are you going to do this? I said, yes, I will, because from the video meeting with Dr. William, I feel kind of like a trust him. We don't, like I said, we couldn't find anyone to share all the experience. I said, let me do it. If I don't try, I will regret in the rest of my life. How am I gonna tell Max if there's a chance in front of us? Like I'm scared to take it. Everybody situation different, but that's my true feeling in the bank, in the office on that day. So money at that time, when you have family to be sick, money really is not really. I don't want to save any money. If I can spend, I spend, because Larry gotta survive with me, and together to raise up kids. And even me and Larry have a lot of goal. We haven't finished yet. So that's a start to send out money. And then Larry, it's very hard to even get into the car. We're starting to make him feel stronger and get into a car, and then we'll be able to get on an airplane. And then the first time when he came back, everything is different. Because we're so close to each other, I can see the hope on his face. Something changed. I can say, Matt, there is a hope on Larry's face. Something changed.
And that is really powerful, and I can only imagine seeing the person you love most in such a vulnerable and weak position, and seeing that hope. It must have just sparked equal in you, and support and compassion and everything between. So thank you for sharing that. That I can only imagine was a very difficult time. We're going to fast forward a little bit on that and go to the man of the hour here, Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, you've been sitting patiently on that. I wanted to get a little bit more from your perspective. And how about we start with just a little bit of an introduction on you for those who are just hearing you for the first time today? How about we start with just kind of who you are and a little bit about Williams Cancer Institute, and then we can dive in a little bit deeper.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Dr. Jason Williams, and of course, my main thing is that I want to change how cancer is treated. I want to be able to help all the cancer patients. I think the way that we treat cancer, is wrong. We need to go right to the tumor to treat the cancer. It makes no sense to come from the outside going in. We need to go right to the tumor, and this is the thing that really try to push and champion for the patients, because the cancer treatments that are out there, unfortunately, are just not good enough, and we need to do better. And this is a way to do better. And we could, we know that immunotherapy is a way that you can actually achieve cures. And so, my whole thing being, interventional radiologist, and being able to stick needles into tumors, and we can go directly to the tumor. We can inject medications and treat the cancers that way. And that's what I do. And I want to try to bring this to all the cancer patients. There's a situation where all patients with cancer, you should be treating going directly into the tumor, and hopefully we can change this for everybody.
Dr. Williams, why are you doing this, and why aren't more doctors doing this as well?
Yeah, well, so obviously for me, my background originally, and you see my grandmother died of cancer, and thinking, gosh, there's got to be a better way, and that was sort of always on my mind of how can we do it. And of course, just going through the process, becoming a doctor, seeing the patients, trying to figure out how can we do better. We can't really just accept that the chemo and the other things that we're doing, that this is good enough, because we weren't being successful. I mean, we're still losing all the advanced cancer patients. We can't save them. So I was like, we can't just think that gaining 3-4 months, that's a win. I want to be able to cure people. And the thing is that a lot of people thought, well, it's just too difficult to go directly to the tumor, but it's not. I mean, we have great imaging technology. This is not it's not like you can't do it. I mean, we can do this. I mean, I teach many doctors to do this. There's tons of radiologists who can do these procedures. I mean, if you do a biopsy, you're sticking a needle in the tumor. That means you could treat the tumor right then.
Right. And it's just a step further at that stage. But when it comes to data analysis and the various other economic factors, there's definitely a slowdown when it comes to this newer technology. And I'll just say, I know that as I'm hearing Larry's story and Qua's story, I think about the what ifs. If my best friend, one of my best friends, had known of Dr. Williams, where would he be today? You know, what would he be doing? And I can only imagine, Dr. Williams, that your grandmother must have been a terrific woman to have had the impact on yourself to drive you down this route.
Yeah, she was, and and you know, and I don't want other people to experience what I experienced. I want to be able to save these people, you know, and cancer patients. We need to be able to eliminate this disease and also eliminate in a way where people are still intact. Because this other thing, you know, some cancer patients get treated, but then they're maimed. I mean, you cut off body parts, you know, to cause all this damage. But we can do this in a better way. We can treat cancer and we can make the patients actually healthier. And that's what we're finding with these immunotherapies, that some of these immunotherapies are actually ultimately making the patient healthier than they were.
Do you feel that your methods are less iatrogenic than perhaps the standard chemo approaches that otherwise affect the body in such a negative manner in that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, and there are certain situations where, you know, the immune system, you may overactivate it and you cause lots of problems, and that happens. But for the most part, if you compare the two, you know, this is much better, much easier for the patients. And so, you know, and we're trying to figure out ways to make it, you know, nice for everybody. And you know, we keep improving. You know, it's not like we don't stay where we're at. We keep advancing every day.